Behold the awakening of the all-seeing eye!
Its gaze pierces all reality.
Hello and welcome back to this week's writing tips. Today we will be discussing epigraphs.
I am the keeper of the essence of evil that feeds the darkness inside you.
It's gonna be a nice Christmas.
Open the door!
I don't want it to happen again, and she's not here!
Stein, what am I supposed to do? Say cheese.
Take care.
Wow. That is the trailer for Say Cheese, a 2026 epic film directed by Frank Palangi, and it runs for 1 hour and 9 minutes. So every snapshot unveils the essence of life's fleeting moments, a time capsule woven with laughter and love, but this camera will be your last shared memory before death. So this film is broken up into 5 chapters. The format is great because it means there are short films, but the genius behind these short films is the cohesion, that each chapter is connected and the terror grows with each new story. This film is not only breathtaking in its artistic delivery, but the way they segue with each grueling story is profound and left me pondering over the concept long after the film had finished. And if that isn't enough to grab you, then the fact I watched it twice because it is so brilliantly executed and because I liked it so much, it's very rare for me to watch a film twice in a row. This should entice you to watch it. Eloquent is one word I would say that fits this film perfectly. Also terrifying is another word that this brings to mind because of the concept that a camera can have the potential to cause harm to people who are captured in the images is a very intriguing concept. So it makes me think of the myth that some cultures believe an image can cause the death of a person being photographed. It makes me think of the Victorian age when they used to take photographs of the deceased because it was the one and only time they could afford to employ a photographer. So they did this to capture the last image of their loved ones. I feel that each chapter deserved its own comprehensive review due to the fact that each chapter is presented at a different celebration. So it makes sense for me to dissect them individually and not as an overall opinion of the film itself. There is something beautifully compelling about the disintegration of a person. It's relatable, it's relevant, and it's very clever. So let's dive in. Chapter 1, date 2019 on New Year's Eve. So Jeff, played by the director himself, Frank Palangi, and his girlfriend Crystal have moved into a house together. She found an old camera from the 1980s, around about that era, at a garage sale, and so she decides to show it to Jeff. There is something not right about this innocuous item. When she takes photos of a man, horrifying images flash before his eyes. Slowly, we see him disintegrating in a morbidly fascinating way that pulls the viewer into the story immediately. At first, it's easy to assume that Crystal is poisoning Jeff or that he's coming down with the flu or COVID. That is until we click on to the fact that the camera is the instigating factor that is tearing this young couple apart. And it's actually quite sad to see the couple lose everything in just a matter of weeks. Anyway, Jeff's anger is growing exponentially and he's been missing work and he can't taste his food anymore. Plus, he looks like death or one of the Walking Dead. By the 5th week, everything that can go wrong does in a rather appalling way. Now, I have to point out the filming technique used for this chapter, as the majority of this, the first, 20 minutes is filmed in one shot, which is bloody brilliant. Also, their conversation is organic and authentic, and I feel that some of their conversation might have been improvised, which is a talent all in itself, actually. I also appreciate the makeup and the sound effects, which each take as it portrays the decline of Jeff's demeanor, his sanity, and a complete change of personality. I also enjoyed the pacing. It was fast, but with nice slow movements to gather upon the tension, suspense, and mystery. The use of different color gradients really helps to set the tone and shifts in moods to enhance the scenes. At the end of this chapter, there's a narrator, and I find this a good way to elaborate on the story, and also his voice is bone-chilling. So he says, live the pain that is inside you. Unleash the pain that's inside you. This is who you are. So chapter 2 is on Christmas Eve. Mindy receives a gift box in the mail, and to her surprise, it's a camera from the 80s, the camera from the previous chapter, which is good because we can see the connection. She has no idea where it came from. What I like is that she sets up the plot for the next chapter with the mention of Jared and that he killed himself. So Mindy is just going about her evening reading a book, and I like the nod to At Death's Door, written by the director Frank Palangi and Christopher Pelton. That's very clever. The colour changes when we meet the Say Cheese monster, because I won't give away who this is great. It changes the tone of the chapter from a rather uneventful evening of Mindy catching up with family members Sunny and Ronnie to something dreadful happening in this story arc. The following day is Christmas, and Ronnie decides to visit Mindy at her home. What I really liked was the scene where he walks into the house and it's pitch black, but we can't see anything, obviously, but we can audibly hear what is happening in the background. This is an very artistic delivery that gave me, it sent shivers down my spine. The sound effects were outstanding. There is a scene of a forest with snow falling and a ticking clock. It's a beautiful but creepy contrast. This chapter is a bit of a slower burn than the previous chapter, but it's there so that it can build up the tension and the suspense, and it gives us enough time to invest in Mindy's character. When she does finally get to use the camera, we see the decline of her disposition, which is enthralling to watch. There's an undertone of dread bleeding through the scenes with great colour changes, gradients, and dark tones to enhance the experience. While she's on the phone arguing with a customer, she starts to come undone. I really appreciate that with each turn of her head, we can see the visible effect of her demise, which is genius to say the least. The last scene is so clever in that we hear what she does to herself with gruesome sound effects, but we don't see the actual event, which I'd say is masterful, because really, we don't need to see what happens when we can hear the sounds, and the sounds are so good that we don't need to see what happens. Well, then we cut back to the narrator who says, live the pain inside you. This shall only release the darkness that you wish. It cannot be tamed. It cannot be stopped. Chapter 3, Valentine's Day. So we go back in time where we meet Jared, who is preparing himself for his first date with Mindy. So he finds a gift box on his doorstep with a camera inside it. The clock is ticking and Mindy still hasn't shown up for the date, and this is making Jared anxious. He calls a friend and vents his frustration that she hasn't turned up. So this made me think, did Jared have something awful in store for Mindy? How is his friend involved? Well, we see glimpses of the maniac to give the audience a sense that something bad is about to go down. So when Jared opens the gift box, the colour red is prominent, making our senses turn on to the fact that red indicates danger. And I think it's primordial or can be associated with blood, which is probably why that scene looks really well done. From then onwards, the whole story becomes sinister as we see a direct change in Jared's mood. He's angry, and it's a remarkable scene. He threatens his friend on the phone, and when said friend turns up at the house to have it out with him, all hell breaks loose. He gets a frightening phone call that changes up the story arc. I am the keeper of the essence of evil that feeds the darkness inside you. It chooses who it wants to choose. Fight it and you will die. Now take it upon yourself to unleash this pain. Release the pain, Jared. Joy in it. All will be revealed. She shall join you soon. Interesting. He argues that his life sucks, that nobody wants him and that he's useless. Meanwhile, he is deteriorating rapidly after using the camera. So it turns into a diabolical scene that does not have a happy ending. We don't see the murder itself, but we can hear it, feel it, turning on our senses. Then we segue back to the narrator, who is saying, you cannot stop what has existed for centuries. When the music and colour changes and the horrid look upon his face, we can gauge that what Jared is thinking. Regret. When the end scene hits, it's marvellous because a curtain hides the ghastly D just right at the penultimate scene, right then and there. It's hidden, and I really, really like this. It's a provocative way for the scene to go, so we don't need to see it because once again the sounds of horror come through, and I think the director has clicked onto the fact that less is always more. So the fourth chapter is on Labor Day. Now this chapter starts off innocent enough to the sounds of Christmas music, Christmas tree decorations, until we see the gift glowing red in the corner. So Jeff is a photographer and he's doing a shoot for a businessman, Gabe Norton, and his staff as he is promoting his new business. He's a no-nonsense type of guy who has a holier-than-thou attitude. Jim is cast in a white background and Gabe in black, which is good juxtapositioning. The shoot is going to plan until Jim decides to use the camera from the 80s for a more vintage look. The music changes from like high-end hotel music to a menacing sound to shift the vibe. Meanwhile, Gabe is having a go at Jim about business and how privileged and entitled he is in his world, seemingly to flex his inner self-worth. So the arrogance of this man makes him like a really unlikable character, and I think that is the point, because we want something horrible to happen to him. So he's so of himself that he actually calls Jim Jeremy. Anyway, he deserves everything coming his way. The decimation of his character is quick and mesmerizing to witness. Now the last chapter is called National Podcast Day. This is a cool chapter. It comes to light that there is a camera killing people. Podcasters from different channels are talking about it. In one instance, one of the podcasters has managed to get a hold of the camera and she takes a selfie, and what happened before with the previous owners happens again. And it's great because it adds a disturbing component to this chapter with a distortion of music and color gradients. So two urban explorer ghost hunters, Cassie and Annie, arrive at the house where Jeff met his fate and his demise. Little do they know they're being watched. The torment on the girls' faces is sickening. In a flashback scene, we get some revelatory background, which is great because it not only answers some questions for the viewer, but it's also a full wraparound back to the beginning. So overall, this is an atmospheric and character-driven film. There are so many amazing elements that make this film a success in my eyes. So usually I've found that in most horror films, whether it's mainstream or indie productions, there's always a life lesson. So I think the lesson here is it's not elusive, nor is it loud. Basically, I think it's to prove that sometimes items that once belonged to other people can leave a residue from the previous owners. Like when you shop in an antique store and you take home an item and only to discover that it's haunted, and in some terrible cases that the objects are cursed. So far-fetched? Not really. There is evidence that this occurrence is common and has been documented. So the narration at the beginning of each chapter is gripping because it sets up the story before we get into the chapters, and it adds a very demonic theme into the film. Attention to detail is on point the whole way through. It's things like where the blood is placed on the ones who are suffering. The camera angles are pivotal to enhance each of the chapters. The music is the excellent choice of musical pieces really helps to set the tone as well. And the music is produced by the director Frank Palangi, which goes to show how talented this man is. So the color shifts add to the tones and moods in a wonderful way. There are some scenes where sometimes the character is exposed in a white background and another character is shown in darker tones. So that's in chapter 1 and chapter 5. I think that's where you really get to see that parallel going on. So the cinematography is off the charts with so many different perspectives. There's really grueling close-up shots, angled shots, experimental camera movements, and having the 80s camera as the main motif that is focused on at certain times is really good as well. So I really like the fact that we don't see the murders in graphic detail. I know that's really weird to say considering it's horror, but this is so expertly done that I find sometimes graphic murder scenes, if there's too many in one film, can become boring if there's too much gore and not enough storyline. But in this instance, the horror is in the sound effects, the makeup, the music, the cinematography, the characters' expressions. And I think this director knows that graphic scenes of gore and horror is not enough to carry a film. Using other methods instead is excellent. The acting is totally beyond my expectations. I actually thought by the title of the film, Say Cheese, that we were going to be in for a comedy. I was wrong, thankfully. In fact, this film exceeded my expectations. Everyone played their roles with total commitment and dedication, and it shows. I highly recommend this film to watch. You will not be disappointed. So it's available to watch on Tubi in most countries. So there is a sequel in the making. Oh, yay. And I so look forward to watching and reviewing that when it becomes available to me. So I look forward for more films from Frank Palangi in the future. Like I said in my last review I did at Death's Door, 2025 film by Frank Palangi, that this director is going to go far in the industry, and I'll say it again. If he keeps this up, he will be up there with some of the greats in the indie sphere, definitely. So yeah, that is my review. This is one that really grabbed me. It's just, you've got to watch it. I really think that if you haven't watched an indie film before and you're watching my review, I would say that this is probably a really good entry for you to see just how brilliant indie films can be, even on a lower budget. It doesn't really matter what the budget is at the end of the day. It comes down to the direction, the cast, all the elements like cinematography, sound effects, different gradients of color, all that wonderful stuff is in this, as well as the music. So if you go and watch it on Tubi. If you haven't watched an indie film before, go and watch this. I think this will change your mind and may set you on a different path than watching merely just mainstream horror that just doesn't deliver anymore. So anyway, I will link the trailer again in the description, and I will also put in the link for the Tubi streaming so that you can watch it on that. So, yeah, until my next review, stay safe out there, take care, and bye for now.